Yes, ma'am. We can start like as per your convenience. I am ready. Like so. I will be waiting.
So very good morning to everyone. I welcome you again in second session of day 5 of AICTE ISTE 1 week online refresher program on artificial intelligence and cooperative Noma 5G network. In this session, Dr. Sandeep Kumar, Associate Professor from IIT Roorkee with us as an eminent speaker. I welcome you, sir. It's my pleasure to introduce sir. Dr. Sandeep Kumar is currently working as an Associate Professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. He has supervised 5 PhD theses and about 40 master's dissertations. He has published about 80 research papers in international, national journals and conferences. He has written 3 books and some book chapters with Springer and has filed 4 patents. He is a member of Board of Studies and various universities and institutions. He is currently handling multiple national and international research consultancy projects. He has received Young Faculty Research Fellowship Award from MEITY, NSF, TCPP, Early Adopter Award in 2014 and 15, IIT's Travel Awards and others. His name has also been enlisted in major directories such as Marcus, WHO's, WHO, IBC and others. His areas of interest include semantic web services and software engineering. He has been awarded by both IEEE as well as ACM with senior member grade. I welcome you, sir. And now I would like to invite Dr. Sandeep Kumar to deliver his talk on role of artificial intelligence and network communication in digitization, digital India perspective. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So thanks for the nice words. Yeah. So actually, we will be sharing our thought today with all the participants. So I hope all of you are faculty members or the research scholars mostly. So it will be a sort of discussion instead of lecturing. So we can have two-way communication, not the monologues from one side only. So that I will really encourage that anyone can interrupt in between and can give your views. So more or less it my lecture, I will not say it lecture, my discussions will be oriented towards that how in these domains of AI and machine learning and digitization and communication we can have some research work, we can have some research activities with the help of our students as well as for the research funding, for the publication and all the different research activities that we normally have in our institutions. So that will be the main goal of the discussion. I am sharing my screen. So yes, I hope it is visible to all of you.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, thank you. So if any one of you is finding any difficulty in between for visibility or related to audio, you can always interrupt me. There is no problem in interrupting. And if you have any views, if there is any input from your side on the different aspects that we are taking care of in this discussion, then also you are most welcome to give your input, and it will be really nice to have a fruitful discussion because ultimately our aim is to have a discussion and to reach to some conclusions so that everyone in this group is able to have some new topics of research, new problems for working, as well as a platform of collaboration and interaction. So first of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers of this course because this course is very timely from the perspective that these days digital India and digitization of the country is very much progressing, and government is also putting up so much of funding so that we are self-reliant in the digitization and we can take the benefit of digitization in our day-to-day life as well as in the missions of national interest. So from that perspective, there are two topics, the two keywords that the organizers have picked up, that is 5G and the artificial intelligence. Both are buzzwords. Both are very important and active topics these days. So this platform should be utilized by the different participants corresponding to these two domains from various perspectives. One of the perspective can be that what are the different problems that are open in these research domains. Second can be how these two domains can help each other. Normally people in 5G is involved from the network communication sides or from the electronic communication side, and in the artificial intelligence now I cannot say that only computer science people are involved. It is being taken care of by almost all the different branches of engineering and science. So from that perspective, more or less you will find in future that 5G is also one of the enabling force for the amalgamation of AI in day-to-day life, because 5G will be having a lot of impact on the network connectivity, internet speed, bandwidth capabilities, and automatically it will have a lot of effect on the softwares that we can deploy through the network. The bandwidth requirement is very essential for network intensive softwares, and more or less you will find these days that most of the softwares that we are using these days are network intensive. Standalone softwares are just like the past these days. Our future and current is mostly dependent upon the network intensive softwares. Even the different domains of computer science related to this emerging trend like cloud computing or Android based applications, machine learning, TensorFlow based development in machine learning, all these requires to have a good bandwidth.
Excuse me, sir. I think slides are not changing.
Yeah, I have not changed the slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to disturb you.
Not a problem. I will. Okay, I can just check. Now, is the slide changed?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not changed the slide at that time.
Okay.
So, from that perspective, it is really essential to have at least the basic understanding of the amalgamation of these two and how one can fulfill the prerequisite, specifically how 5G enablement can fulfill the prerequisite for the widespread uses of AI and cloud-based applications in the country. So I will try to touch upon these perspectives in my discussion. I am not the people of 5G, right? I am just the user of this one. I am not technical person from the 5G perspective, right? So I will, but as a academician who is involved in the different kind of software development and research, all of us can have a lot of flavors, lot of applications that are based upon the enablement provided by 5G and machine learning and network communication, network infrastructure capabilities that are enabled through this recent trend. So many of your lectures might be devoted to technicalities and architecture related to 5G, right? As well as many of the speakers will be speaking or might have already spoken on the artificial intelligence architecture and machine learning. Now in this lecture of around 1.5 hours, our basic objective will be how to utilize that knowledge that we have gained from different discussions that has been held or will be held in this course for the real life applications, and then how to have some domain specific problems, research problems for the students as well as for the publications as well as for the research funding. So that will be our main objective. We will have very free discussion. All of us can contribute to this discussion. Your views are also very much welcome, because these are domain specific views many times. So if there are participants from the different domains like civil engineering, mechanical, electronics, biotechnology, then they will have very specific and very exclusive perspective to these applications, and that will be really helpful to the others as well. I have seen in the past that on these type of courses, normally from the participants only, very good groups of collaborations happen. Very good collaborative groups happens. We have seen in the past in our institute as well. So you should try to utilize this discussion for making those groups, right? But in the online mode, I rarely find that people participate. But I will really expect all of you to have your input on the different topics, so that all others can listen you, and we can have very good and concrete collaborations in future. As far as the discussion, the material that I will use, most of the material will be based on our research work, some of our research papers, some of the books, as well as some of the material which is already available on the internet. We have used all these resources for this purpose. As far as the research concerns in these two domains are concerned, we can broadly see that we can have a core level research, right? So I hope you are able to see my screen as well as whatever I am writing. We can have a core level research, as well as we can have the applied. So from both the perspective, we are touching in this specific course. So this lecture will be mostly try to discuss the applied, that how we can have the different domain problems. Interdisciplinarity is very important these days, and practically if you will see the uses of any technology, then it cannot be best utilized without the interdisciplinary research and interdisciplinary knowledge. So that's why making the groups of interdisciplinary nature is really useful these days, and that is also relatively easily publishable. Just a truth that is happening these days. Core level research requires a lot of expertise and effort. I am not saying that that is not essential. That is very much essential for the enablement of any technology. But equal importance, if not, I will say almost equal importance we should give to how we can apply these technologies for the betterment of the society, and that attracts a good funding from the government side as well. In most of the cases, you will find that normally the different call for projects which is happening, as well as call for papers by different reputed conferences and special issues in journal, they are these days very much oriented towards that how we can utilize these technologies for the different domains, for enablement or for the betterment of existing domains. So from that perspective, everyone should be open to these topics, even though you might be using or you might be having very different domain in the past, or from the last decade or so, you might be involved in different kind of topics of research. So there is no need to have complete transition. A gradual transition can happen, and you can easily adopt these topics in your research work through these applied perspective. And that will be win-win situation for your students as well, because more or less you will find that most of the students these days, from graduation to doctoral, most of them are very much interested in these topics. So the availability of the manpower and the students is sufficient in these topics, and that will really help you to have a good transition. I will not say even it a transition, I will say just an application of your existing domain or the adaptation of your existing domain as per the demand of these topics. So that can really happen, and from our discussion we can find so many of good ideas that how it can happen. Like many of you might be already working in the area of distributed systems, Just an example, distributed computing or wireless sensor networks, ad hoc networks, or simply networks, right? So many of you might be simply working in AI. Within that also you might be involved in some agent-based learnings. So these are very traditional topics that all of us might be working since long. But if you will see that if you are working in distributed systems, then you can easily move on to cloud systems as well. If you are working in distributed computing, we can easily move on to cloud computing as well. If you are working in wireless sensor systems or in sensors, then you can touch upon the various aspects of IoT as well. If you are working in communication or network communication, then you can move on to the research on 5G as well. A sort of a layer is happening on the existing infrastructure. Similarly, if you are having good basis of data analytics or AI and learning systems, then you can move on to deep learning, machine learning as well. So we have to look upon how we have to move upon. Similarly, I will touch upon many different perspectives, many different topics that can help you to think upon your domain. So at the end of discussion, ultimately we will be having many open problems, many open questions which are ultimately unanswered. Don't expect that at the end we will have many solutions, many problems that we have to explore, that all of us have to explore, all of our students have to explore. A lot of curiosity should be there, and then only the work can be done. Actually, data analysis these days, I am using very generic term, these days is important not only in India but throughout the world. Internationally also a lot of attention is given to the data analytics, and this is happening even in these COVID times, and a lot of decisions, policies are being generated, are being developed based on the data analysis. You might have seen that recently a lot of people are publishing on COVID data. It's due to the importance given to the data analytics by the different international and national organizations. Right, so it's not only for publishing. I'm not saying that all the publications which are happening in like large numbers, large scale publications which are happening, that everyone will be having an impact. But some of the works which are published are essentially very impactful, and we have seen the impact even like some vaccinations and these vaccines and the policies, the decisions to have the lockdown, the predictions. Some of the research work has been enabling force behind all these things, and data is one of the important entity, an important component, and important stakeholders in all these activities. So that's why it is generating many research problems, right, including from your 5G as well as from AI. So due to this reason only, even government of India is nowadays trying to have the good, at least the basic knowledge of data and data analytics and how to use the data for their policy makers as well. In the administration peoples, like even we are also involved in the training of some of these peoples, right, some of these guys. So from that perspective, it is very important, right? Am I audible? Yes, am I audible?
Yes, sir, perfectly audible.
Okay, okay, thank you. Because there was a power interruption in between. My UPS was being used that time. So now it's okay. Okay, so from that perspective, it's very important to see firstly that how the digitization in India is happening and how we can fetch up various research problems in this domain. More or less when you are applying for the funding, like when we are applying for the funding, we have seen these things. That's why from those experiences only I am sharing you the thoughts. So when we are applying for the funding for research projects, even in many of the call for papers, this thing is happening, that government agencies or even the private organizations, they are or many CSR fundings, they are asking you how your problem, how your project proposal is aligned to the government initiative, which initiative is very well aligned to your research problem. So this is more or less important for the funding, because if you are supporting or you are anyway helping to further the recent government initiatives, then only you should be eligible for the funding. So many times we feel that like we are working in this domain and this is not seems to be related to the government initiative, then how my work will be eligible for this, and we leave the idea that okay, no need to go for funding, why should try for funding, what will be the benefit of that, it will not be crossed. So this is the thought normally happens to the researchers and including us. So but understand one point, like I would just like to put upon some perspectives very quickly. I will go through these slides and then we move on to the other topics. If you will look upon the vision of digital India, right? So you will find that there are some important keywords: digitally empowered society, right? This is very important keyword, and knowledge economy. So what this keyword is saying, like we can easily understand this point. Like the basic objective, the vision of this program is to transform India into a digitally empowered society. It means that if we can contribute some work, if our research problem can contribute in a way that it can help in enablement of a society or the help of the society such that it is more empowered with your digitization, right? Or we can say, if you look upon the vision areas in detail, there are three key vision areas: digital infrastructure, governance on and services on demand, and digital empowerment of citizens. So this is very important, that if we can say that my problem is ultimately helping to the citizens of this country, then we can easily align our work with the Digital India mission, right? And there is a very broad perspective. It is a very large scope, very big problem, digital empowerment of citizens. It's not a very specific thing which has been done in Digital India mission and vision. Basically, it's at par with the internationally recognized definitions of smart societies. The IEEE definition also says that if we are doing something in a smart society through digitization and smart computing, then it should be helpful to the common people. It should be helpful to improve the living standard of the citizens of that society. So it's at par with that only. So it is very standardized thing which you can see from the Digital India website as well. So it is specified that if you are doing something for in digitization, it is not helping the user of that system. It's no way helpful to improve their living standard or their work. Then we cannot say that even if it is complete digitization, then also we cannot say that it is at par with the mission and vision of Digital India or digital society or digital country or digital world. Because the ultimate aim is that it should be able to improve the living standard of the citizens. I am not saying that each and every research proposal that we will be submitting, the isolated proposal will be having impact on the citizens. It happens many times that an isolated proposal also have an significant impact on the citizens' life, but not necessarily that every proposal will have. Some of the proposals are just for the furtherance of effectiveness of digitization on the improvement of living standard of human being or citizens, right? They are contributing, but they are not in isolation, directly having the impact. So this can happen, but we have to write the proposal or we have to write our research work specifying that long-term impact also may not be direct impact, but the indirect impact also. Sometimes those indirect impact are very essential and might be having a strong gap in the existing works, so that our work might be fulfilling. So from that perspective, we need to think. So if you will look upon the Digital India pillars, so these 9 pillars are specified, and each one of them, if we are thinking in a particular direction, will give you a research problem. I will quickly discuss these themes, and along with that, for each theme we will be discussing many research problems that comes to our mind, and way of thinking I would try to elaborate so that we all of us can think in that direction. Many of you might be very expert in that sense, because it is also an art. I feel that some people are able to think in that way and they are able to get many good problems for the project funding as well as for the research papers. So let us try in that way. So first one is like broadband highways. So this is very important perspective, and the basic theme of this course 5G is also aligned to this broadband highways. So the major objective of and also to the second one that I will discuss, 5G is covering many such initiatives of Digital India Mission. So basically, if you will look upon this perspective, this pillar, this part of the Digital India Mission, it says that we need to have broadband connectivity for all rural area as well as urban area. So what it means that roughly all of the citizens in the country, rural plus urban, coverage of everyone. So this is very important part. Many of you might have seen in the past, some of you might be some senior researchers who have been involved in the research from 10-15 years. About 1.5 decade back, if you were proposing some research problems that requires that your output should be disseminated to the villagers, to the farmers, it will be useful to the farmers, then normally the reviewers will be saying, and we have faced it, many of you might be remembering it, that like if you are proposing your PhD proposal, and at that time you are saying that yes, I will have this agriculture related app software, and the farmers will be using it. So that time, what normally the reviewers will say that your architecture is okay, your proposal seems to be fine, but there is one problem, that how can you say that there will be internet connectivity in the rural area? How can you say that the farmers will be having internet connectivity? Many a times people keeps on laughing on such proposals. Imagine that scenario that was there. But nowadays, such problems can be tackled very easily. Internet connectivity is nowadays widespread even in the hill stations, hill areas, remote areas, or in very future, near future, this will be there. So based upon this basis only, we can now easily propose the problems which are network intensive. 5G, if enabled, might be having a lot of impact in this direction. So that's why the issue of bandwidth and internet connectivity is not so important these days. And we can easily specify that due to the reason of this initiative under Digital India, now I am proposing this research problem or this software development problem where the dissemination of my output will be for the farmers. Consider so many problems. If you know, if you have faced such thing, you can easily tell to others. If anybody is interested, you can unmute and tell. Okay. So this thing happens, right? You can interrupt me anytime and you can tell anything throughout the discussion. Like in this domain nowadays, we can have many problems which are open for research. Like I will give you an example. We had one project related to the hazard prediction. Hazards prediction can be for earthquake, landslide, as well as many other hazards. So under that, we need to deploy the sensors at different places, normally in the remote areas, in the hill areas. So the sensors were gathering the information, and that has to be processed on the real time at the data center. So how that was doing, that there are internet connectivity in the remote domain, remote areas, and we can get the data and the real time data from those places, and that's why this problem is enabled. Similarly, like if you want to have some software application or some system, some project proposal where the data is to be collected from the remote villages, right? So how that can be possible? So it is not that always we will be there, right? Because we need to do our research work as well, we need to teach the students as well. So like if there is some possibility of involvement of some villagers, you can have some application and they can keep on feeding the data on daily basis. That is possible under one another initiative as well. So that will be helpful. So you can design some problems in this way. Similarly, like if you want to have some system, because these days a lot of funding is on agriculture systems as well, then you might be interested in designing some system for the farmers. So now your system requires that farmer want to have some instructions related to the crop diseases. So due to this enablement, farmer can capture the images and through your system, and then based on those images, some experts can specify that what type of fertilizer should be used at that time for the crop. Similarly, there might be some problem related to irrigation, that how much water should be used for the irrigation, when it should be irrigated based on the soil moisture. So this type of application is being used these days, and a lot of work is happening in this domain. Even one of my past student has like put up a start a few years back, and now that startup is also covered by your story. So that is, they have obtained very good funding from the capital venturist as well. So they have done this type of job. They have used this broadband capability which is enabled in the villages as well. Specifically in the Nagpur area, they are doing that type of work. So what they have done, they have placed the soil sensors and some of their proprietary sensors in the different areas. They are charging small amount from the farmers, and they are helping them to decide to have the advice on the water, how much water they should use when there is a need for the irrigation, when it is ready for harvesting. So many of such recommendations are enabled to their system. Initially we think that it might be just like theoretical things only. In practical they might not be useful, but the impact of that work was very good. The quality of the crop that that was improved really with the help of these type of activities. And I get to know from them that now they are able to have the export level quality of the crops from those areas in which they have installed these sensors and their system. So ultimately there is a lot of scope. Just we need to see that yes, now this facility is there, how to use this facility. I have given just some examples, but it can be used in many different ways, right? Another is like universal access to mobile connectivity. Everyone is knowing about this one, right? So the scenario these days is like that we cannot imagine our life without the smartphones nowadays, mobile phones nowadays. Rarely we will find any person who is not having the smartphone or mobile phone. So this has also opened a lot of research problems. I will not say that there are no harm of using the mobile phone. That is a different topic of research. Even for the 5G, a lot of discussion and debate is happening regarding that. And when the 5G enabled mobile connectivity will be there, then lot many further scopes will be open to you. What it is we have to think, what we have to think in this direction, that when this mobile connectivity is there, then the reachability of the policy makers and the administration is now widespread up to the villages and up to the end user, the stakeholders. We have the reachability. Like you can see that many government initiatives are disseminated through the mobile phones nowadays, through the mobile apps. Like in many states, the fasal, the crop purchase is happening, the registration of crop is happening through the mobile apps. And nowadays you find that the farmers are also easily able to use these devices and they are able to register. So the problems that I specified in last slide, many of them requires mobile connectivity. The use of mobile device is now widespread, and that is also enabling you to have many problems like the ones that I specified. Like the farmer is capturing the image, so through the mobile phone they are capturing the image and then using your software to send the image on real time, you are able to get the response. That requires a lot of research ultimately from the research point of view. One is that we need to have the lightweight. If we are working in the core research area, we need to have the lightweight applications, because if there is a lot of server communication for the different applications, then it will require a lot of bandwidth. But if you can enable some decisions on the client side only, then the communication will be less. But at the mobile device, the computing facility required will be high. So we need to have the trade-off between them. So many people are using the TensorFlow for that to make them lightweight. And another is like on the client side also, you can take many decisions. Like recently only in the last batch, one of my group on project, they have developed an app that can in that more or less most of the work was done on the client side only, and most of the computations was happening on the client side only to detect the leaf type as well as leaf disease. Right, most of the applications which are existing, they are normally on leaf disease detection. We need to specify the type of the leaf, but that was freehand. More or less many such leaves were trained and it was able to detect the leaf as well and then the disease as well. So and the important point was that most of the computation was happening on the client side. So this type of work is possible due to the mobile connectivity, this initiative only. We need to just think that yes, mobile connectivity is nowadays happening. So how to use this one for some research problem? One use of mobile is widespread to use it for talking. What can be the other uses of this device is to be explored, and people are exploring it. Like there are so many applications, so many things which are happening due to this mobile, but we have to explore it for this most important use as well, because mostly people are using it for entertainment as well. Right, we need to use it for how we can use this device for the improvement of the living standard of citizens, for their help. Right, so like we were related to this point only, like last year we did one of the work that was related to handling the disaster scenario through the mobile devices. And few years back one project proposal happened, not by me, one of my colleague, They were doing some work on helping the tourists specific to a large gathering, that just like it happens in Kumbh Mela or any other such incidents like Char Dham Yatra, that how we can use the mobile devices for handling the gathering and tracking the people. Like this is a very widespread use problem through the mobile devices, tracking them, that tracking their locations, where they are. So we can build some such systems, and so many uses, like from the mobile devices, their physical addresses. We can get to know the footprint, that how much gathering is there at a time at a particular location. Like even few years back, one of our student used this one to develop an application where we were able to get to know that how many people are there in the ground for a particular festival, right? So there are so many things, just we need to think upon this direction, and we will get to know that yes, this is a good uses, we can have this type of application. So even during this discussion only, I have specified you 3-4 problems. Similarly, like when we need to have some data gathering from the villages, we can have some application through the mobile, they can feed the data, and that we can gather on our data server. So through these type of problems are enabled. Like uh, uh, these type of problems are also handled through the CSCs. This is third initiative, Public Internet Access Program. Under this program, common service centers are established at Gram Panchayat level. So many of you might be aware about this one, right? CSCs are established at the Gram Panchayat level, right? So if you are having some projects related to that, or you can apply for some projects related to this problem, where the involvement of day-to-day involvement of villagers, or some data collection or dissemination through the Gram Panchayat is required. So that type of problem can be enabled through these CSCs. CSCs are used by government normally for the dissemination of their services to the large stakeholders, right? So we can use this initiative for our projects as well, right? Like normally when we need to have day-to-day data gathering for some project, right, then normally it is not possible for us or our students to visit all the time to the different villages, right? So in that case, we can have some involvement from the Gram Panchayat. Even we can have some collaborations with the Gram Panchayat. In some of the projects, it is essential these days for government funding, right? Even in our institute, we have one project which is run by Hydro, related to weather prediction and dissemination of weather information to the villagers. They also provide some of the information related to cropping to them. They are performing these type of activities in collaboration with some villages. And similarly, a lot of managerial activities can happen for village level management through this type of connectivity. Like few years back, I will just tell you one thing. Like one of my student, like, but at that time he was not working with me. Before that only, and that project was very famous at that time. It was covered in the media as well. They started a project to have the development of agarbatti from the material, specifically the flowers which are used in the temples. So flowers, a lot of flowers in this area, like in Haridwar and all these areas, are used in the temples. So after some time, these flowers are taken out from the temple. If instead of wasting them, they are collected and used for the agarbatti making, then it was found to be very useful by them. So they started a very small project, initially at very small level, within the institute only. So it was quite famous. The quality of the product was also very good. Then later on, it has to be managed at the different villages level. A lot of small scale uh, like small scale businesses, I can say, or the units happen in the different villages, and they started to use that model. So those need to be managed. So ultimately, it is not possible for students to go to the villages on day-to-day basis, because they are basic mainly for attending the classes and doing their undergraduation or post graduation. So they then uses these type of services, so that they are able to manage the things, and later on then they were when they were self reliant, then they give up, and it was happening for long. I am not aware currently what is the status. So we need to just think upon that how we can use these services, existing infrastructure, for the different purposes, with the help of our existing research work, or little bit of adaptation or little bit of addition in the existing work. We need to just think in that direction. So that will be giving you a lot of research problems, that for sure. Similarly, like another domain, e-governance. So in that, this was very famous, online repositories. Many of you might have heard about this initiative of government. So under this initiative, basically online repositories are to be maintained, and it is happening for the educational degrees and certificates, identity documents, and lot many such things. So this initiative requires this, the same type of model was supposed to happen for the medical domain as well, and many of you might be working in this domain for medical document repositories, right? And this was for the monumental documents as well. So that was also very much talked about. Even some projects were funded by government in this direction, right? And still one of that scheme of government of India is having some project calls related to that one. So what normally is the scenario in this case? Digitization is one thing, like if there are monumental document or the hard documents, we need to convert them to soft documents. One might be just scanning of these and writing, putting up in the repository for the preservation. But another important thing in all these domains is how we can use artificial intelligence and machine learning to have good indexing and searching of these documents. One way can be like just we are putting some annotation to these documents, and based on that only we are able to search. So for the educational degree, it might be okay. It might be enough, because by just enrollment number or roll number we can search them. But for the monumental documents and for the medical documents, or for taking some policy decision based on these documents, we need to move upon the indexing and searching. So that is again a research problem, that how to have the most efficient work in this direction, so that searching time is reduced, we can do a proper indexing of them, right? And another can be security of these documents, so that accessibility is not an issue, right? It cannot be accessed by some malicious user. So all these research problems, which are very famous problems, can be applied in this domain, and it can be a very domain specific work. Like even in the Aadhaar, I am not saying that we can have accessibility to Aadhaar database, but it can be given as a problem to the students, like small student projects, undergraduate students or postgraduate student projects, not thesis, right? So in those cases normally it can be worked as a case study. So they would like to understand how the things are happening, how the data sets are maintained in the system, how they are secured. And normally from these points, when they will be understanding this, they will be getting some research problems to work upon, some good project problems to work upon. So from that, in that way, you will be benefited as well as students will be benefited. So just we need to think upon in this direction the points that I am specifying, and you will be able to get a lot of research problems. Like in the e-Kranti initiative, you have cloud by default, mobile first, language localization, national GIS. These are very important topics in which the research work can happen and very high scope of publications. Like these days, every platform that you are building, normally we can have two important adaptations. One is that how we can enable it to disseminate the product through the mobile phone, because government is also saying that try to have the mobile first initiative, because the reason is very simple. The reachability of mobile devices, these small computing devices, if we are considering it as a computing device, is widespread as compared to the laptop or the desktop, right? Apart from any other device which is used for computation, mobile phones or smartphones are more widespread relatively. So if we want to have the high reachability, then we need to build the application which is lightweight and which can be energy efficient and have the good reachable and have the good interface and working through these devices. So you see that most of the applications which are famous these days, they are enabled through mobile phones. Either it is government initiative or from the private corporations. Just we have to think in this direction. In academia, mostly we are not going in that direction. We have to just think that whether there will be change in the architecture of the systems if we are going to have it mobile enabled, or whether we have to change the algorithm so that it is lightweight, or where we have to do changes and or we have to do changes in the implementation and the platform of implementation so that it is lightweight, right? How much we can do the work on the client side, because the limitations are there on the client side in the mobile devices, mobile applications as compared to the laptop or desktop. So all these architectural changes will happen in the development and design, and that will give you a research problem. Very simple thing. Just we have to think in that direction. Similarly, cloud by default, which is very much talked about, but practically it needs a lot of improvement, a lot of research work and development work that is happening these days. That, like if you are working already in some research problem, now we want to enable it to disseminate, to port it on the cloud. Automatically there will be some changes required in the architecture, some scheduling, some energy efficiency problems will be required, and automatically the research problem will be there that we can work upon, right? Just we have to think in that direction. If you are person from the GIS domain, geospatial information systems, from civil engineering basically, then this initiative can help you, national GIS, right? So that can give you a lot of research problems where the research work from the international domain on GIS can be adapted for the indigenous development of the from the national perspective. This is again a very good research problem. Language localization. Many of you might be working already in NLP, right? NLP or text mining, many of you might be working already. So we have to just see that yes, there are some techniques, a lot of work which is available in the natural language processing for the English language or other languages. Now, how we can do similar type of work in the Indian languages? For Hindi, there might be some work, but not much. But for the local Indian languages, not much work is available. Surely for most of the languages, a lot of scope for the research work is there, right? Even in language localization, there are some specific government initiatives like TDIL is one such initiative. Under that, they are funding and they are encouraging to have the work in the Indian languages. Similarly, even there are some of the like applications which are to be adapted to the Indian languages. A lot of work is happening. Even the private organizations are also trying to do this work, language localization, so that they can get good business in the local domains. So just we need to think in this direction. If you are already working in this domain, specifically in NLP and data mining and text mining domain, and you will automatically will be having so many research problems ready for you. Specifically, some problems I have already discussed. Next is like open data platform. This is very ambitious initiative of the government of India. Since few years it is happening. Many of you might be aware about that. Consider this scenario. Am I audible? Yes, am I audible?
Yes, sir, audible.
Okay, okay, thank you. So consider this scenario like about 10-15 years back. Many of you might have been working on the research problems related to smart transportation, intelligent transportation, as well as crime control related, crime detection based on the location, geolocations for the crime in a particular city. So all these problems were quite famous those times. Even we were submitting some projects on those topics. You might also be handling some problems related to that. But that time, one of the big issue that was happening when you are applying for the funding was that you are using the Chicago city data, because Chicago city data was quite famous that time. It is also famous these days, as well as some Australian data. Then how do you think that yes, your project might be okay, but how do you think that it will be applicable in the Indian domain? The geographical scenario is quite different in the Indian cities. How do you think that it will be applicable? Similarly, the same type of scenario was happening in the agricultural research, right? And believe me, like if you will apply for project and you will use those data sets only, then also the funding agencies, the reviewers will say same thing. These days scenario has really changed. Now the government is having a very good perspective in this side as well, that because gradually the things are happening. Now for everything it is very much encouraged that you should record the data, so that in future it can be used for academic or institutional research. So that type of thing is now happening. There is some data platform from the government of India side as well. It might be the scenario that data is not just ready for uses. We have to do a lot of pre-processing, but in future it might be in the good form as well. So we can try to work in this direction. I have attended some of the PhD thesis vivas where the data from some of the Indian cities was used, and they were able to publish it in some good journals as well. So this is true, like even like if when the Indian data is there, every country, every international scenario is now very much favorable, and they are also interested to know the results from the Indian perspective. It's not that nowadays Indian data or Indian outcome is not appreciated. If the data from Indian cities are there, if the data from Indian agriculture is there, then its result are also of interest to the community, to international community. So we can use the Indian data as well, and we can frame our projects from that perspective. So there will be many benefits in this way. One will be that you will, most of the cases, you will have some counterpart from the international data, and that will give you a basis of learning. We need to adapt those problems for the Indian side, that's true, but that is also favorable thing because that will give you the good research problem. So that will give you the problem that how to adapt it from Indian cities or Indian data, right, or the Indian agriculture scenario or the Indian indigenous system development. So from all these perspective, the open data of the Indian government of the India can be really useful to work upon, for both from the research perspective as well as from the research project perspective, so that we can work upon. Similarly, even in the electronics domain, for the electronics manufacturing, national policy for electronics is happening. I think what is the current status, I am not sure, but few years back it was in the development scenario, and even we were approached to have the input on the draft that all these related to 4G at that time, and then for 5G, and for the broadband also there is broadband forum of India, so who are responsible for giving the input on these national policies. So if you will go through these documents, one is that if we can give some input in this one, that is okay if it is open for discussion. But even if it is not open for discussion, even then in these documents there are many research problems. You will find many research problems which are of direct interest to the user and which are open, which need to be handled, right? You can see that finding the research problems is a more or less equally hard task as is the solving of research problem. So in these documents you will find many problems which are open and which requires a lot of research efforts, and even many teams are working on some small part of the bigger problem. So that is very important for the nation as well as for your research profile. So you can easily go through such documents, like if you will go to the Broadband Forum of India website, related to 5G also definitely you will find the problems. Related to AI also you will find the research problems. So we need to just look upon those and see that how we can contribute in them, right? Similarly, I can just recall that some government organizations, most of the ministries are having some hackathons every year. Apart from one of very famous hackathon of Government of India, there are some small problems which are specified in day-to-day basis by the government agencies, ministries, as well as the labs and corporations, government corporations also. So normally they open some white paper type of thing where the direct problems are specified to work upon, and their practical uses in their corresponding corporation is specified. So you can work upon those problems as well. So you will find many such open problems on their websites or on their publications. Normally they have a newsletter. So you will find many such problems. Like occasionally we get mail from them where specific problems are specified. Ministry of Defense is also having some research problems which are open for research work. Sorry. So that has to be looked upon. So like these are some early harvest program like biometric attendance system, Wi-Fi knowledge university, secure email within government, SMS based weather information, disaster alert. So these are some of the problems which are having very good research scope, like biometric attendance. So security of your biometric information, very important research work. Lot of AI is involved in these type of systems to have the more efficient biometric system, right? Similarly, good communication and security problem is happening in secure email within the government, right? SMS based weather information, disaster alert, very important problem, disaster alert, and then disaster management, very important problem. Through the mobile phones also it is happening. Like few months back, one of our student has developed some app, but it was not fully developed ultimately. But the thing was like if some disaster is happening, then at the location of the disaster, how much effect will be there through with reference to the distance, and then how to reach that location from the current location under the current scenario. Due to the disaster, something, some routes might have changed, so how to do that, depend using the might be Google Maps or any other crowdsourcing based information. So these type of systems can be helpful. I am not saying that directly whatever you will develop will be useful to the society, but sometimes it will be useful, sometimes it will be a sort of research work that might be useful to some other researcher, and then ultimately it can have the impact. So we have to think in that direction only, and then we will have so many research problems. Like, so these are also some DI initiatives, so I'm just keeping that. So many research initiatives like smart city is also one of them, right? Startup India is also one of them. Swam, Koya Paya, MyGov, many of you are knowing. NKN in almost all the government labs, digital aims, jam. So there are so many problems which are there. We have to just look upon these problems and to contribute from our research project perspective. As a teacher as well as a researcher, we can work upon them. As a teacher, if we are involved in these type of works, then we can impart some good knowledge to students related to these new technologies, new type of initiatives. At least we can give the example of them, so many of students might be encouraged to work in this direction. As a researcher, you will find many scope, like I have even explained many of them, right? Many student projects can be there, many problems for the research scholars can be there. Ultimately you will find it is a win-win situation, even as a teacher, even if you are not doing the research in these topics. Like I have given few years back, I have given a problem to one of the BTech group that try to see the networking infrastructure of one of the organization with their consent. It was just a win-win situation ultimately. The students were able to have a very good practical exposure, and believe me, out of 100 such problems that you are tackling in 2 3 years, at least one of them will be very good. One of the group will be able to do some good job. I'm not saying that everyone will be able to do good job. Out of 100, one can do at least. So they were able to find out a very good loophole in their system, and then that was handled by them. So they were not some extraordinary student, but anyone can get the idea if they are understanding the problem. So this is the scenario. Like if we are expecting that every group or every student will generate some good problem or good solutions for you, then it is over optimism. But some of them can definitely contribute, some of them can definitely give some good problems. Even if they are not finding the solution, then it can be a ready-made problem for the another set of students that can be worked upon by the other year's batch. So in this way we have to think about. So if any one of you have any discussion points, anything that you want to say from the discussions till now, you can tell me. You can tell to all, like if you have some experiences in this domain or such type of things that you have faced and you want to tell to others, it is open to all. Yes, no one? Okay,
Yes, sir.
no problem, then we will continue further.
Hello.
Yes, yes sir, yes sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, I want to say something.
Yes please, yes Surajji, great.
Yes, sir. It is nice presentation and overview of the complete this computers and network. I want to discuss some point whereas the networking is increasing day by day and many devices are connected and we are going to 5G. But still there is a problem of connectivity whenever we are giving presentation or whenever we are giving this conferences we are attending. We are in a dilemma that the network can be disabled at any time. The network can be low, and we are not able to complete the conference or the seminar. So, what about this problem? When this problem will be get rid, and especially in the mountain areas or villages or in Gram Panchayat, what will the next scope on what will the future that we will get rid of this problem?
Yes, yes. So that's a good and open research problem, Surajji. Truly good point. And even I think 5G experts are also trying in that direction, how we can improve in that way. Apart from the network bandwidth availability, one of the work in this direction can be if you are from the development side, that how we can reduce the size of softwares. Size means like computational requirements. So if we can reduce the computational requirements, then the lightweight systems will be able to do your work. And second thing, that how can we reduce the network dependency, that if minimum number of data is transferred during the execution of your system, like even if it is video conferencing system or if it is some computational system, then also on the low bandwidth the system can work. So that type of research is very important. A lot of people are doing in this direction. So in this problem that you are saying, these type of research problems arises that can be worked upon. So that's a good thing from your side. So any other comments from any other participant is also welcome.
Yes, sir. Sir, one thing more I want to add
Yes,
that
please.
and any service provider are giving us that 50 Mbps or 100 Mbps, but we are never getting that much speed at any time, at any peak time or non-peak time. While they are providing, they are saying that we are giving the speed of 50 or 100 Mbps. Then what's the problem behind this? And one thing more, whenever we are attending such conferences, then if there is a problem of this bandwidth or network, then we sometimes uh, off our video and then we start the presentation. So I think video is using more bandwidth.
Yes, true. That's obvious. Video is using much more bandwidth than the audio. And video transmission itself is a open research problem, how to reduce the bandwidth usage in video transmission, where even keyframe detection during the video transmission and all that, that is these are some of the ideas which are worked upon in this domain.
So
Yes.
in this compression techniques are also used for this
Yes, yes,
video
yes. Compression technique is also very much worked upon. Very open problem, Suraj. That's true. So like even Surajji has specified some research problems which he might be working already, or these are open for research, like given the current scenario and the online era in which we are doing the thing, like even work from home or attending the meetings. So these problems are open for research and can contribute a lot. Thank you, Surajji. Okay, any other
thank you, sir.
faculty? Thank you, Surajji. Thank you. Okay, so we will move ahead. So now I will touch upon one of very important thing related to the discussions that we held to pack up the things ultimately to a good conclusion. Mostly when our students or all of us many times are working on some research problem related to AI or machine learning or data analytics or many of the things that we are working upon even in 5G or any of the network communication system. Then one thing is very important in all these cases, that these days ultimately to have a good end product, we need to have the amalgamation of software as well as hardware, right? Independently, just the hardware is also not so much increased due to less intelligence, and independently only the software cannot work. It has to be used along with some hardware, at least in that sense. So that's why nowadays software intensive systems is a very good term which is being used, which is happening day by day. It is that kind of system where the dominance of the functionalities is at the software side. Like if there is a system which involves hardware as well as software, then most of the functionalities will be performed by the software. Then it can be called a software intensive system. So in most of the problems that we had discussed or will be explored by you, in most of the cases, like in telecommunication domain, in many automotive applications, wireless ad hoc network systems, web services which we are using, smart grid systems, smart city based systems, or IoT based systems, in most of the cases this is the scenario. Even this was an open issue in one of the discussion, that whether we should classify these kind of systems as hardware or software. These days with time, in many of the cases, the cost of hardware is decreasing and cost of software is increasing. And how to classify these? Like I will give a very simple example. Just before the corona, I was attending one of the meeting, and uh, there was a scenario that the discussion was that, like at the custom, when we are declaring something, like we are declaring a pen drive, then this pen drive might be of just 300 rupees, but the software which is being stored in the pen drive might be of 1 lakh rupees. So if it is being declared as a hardware, then custom duty will be on 300 rupees only, not on the software. So this type of issues, just an example. Same thing might be with any application, like in a mobile phone also. This thing might happen. Even in some device as well, which is having most of the functionalities through the help of software only. So these things might happen. So just for the example, I was trying to say that we need to look upon the complete system as a whole. And this is very important for research in these domains that I have specified. Either it is network intensive systems, either it is communication systems, or it is AI based systems. We need to see that what is the overall system instead of just looking upon one problem. There is a big software or big system like a smart city. Out of that, only small part you are working upon, and that part you might have worked upon very well. But overall, if you will look upon the problem in which your system will be deployed, then your software or hardware might not be working fine. So how to handle that? So that is a big issue. So that's why normally what the issue is, like this might happen with many of us, like we are presenting our problem, like about 1.5 years back only, I was attending one of the presentation where some project proposals were presented. That project proposal for which I am talking about, that was related to medical domain. So they have a very good solution for the ophthalmologist, eye specialists. But then there was a comment from one of the reviewer that yes, okay, your system is fine, it's having so much good things, but already one unit to which your system will be integrated is working, and that unit is generating this type of outcome which is not compatible with your system. Then how your system will be useful? How you will make your system compatible with that? So there was no answer, and ultimately it was declined. So same thing happens in many of our research works as well. If you are putting some research work in a good journal like ACM transaction or IEEE transaction, then many cases the reviewers are also talking about some other protocols and other systems with which your system will be integrated or will be working with. So you might have worked upon all the issues of your system very well in the paper, but we normally overlook the other products or other systems or other protocols or other standards with which our system will be integrated. So then reviewer is pointing out that yes, this is an established standard already, and with this standard how your system will work. So this is again an open problem that is creating the issue. So we have to look upon the whole of the system to have a good and fruitful outcome for the efforts, right? So otherwise situation will be like this only. Independently we are working fine, but if this was already there, this track was already there and we started from our side very well, but the integration is the issue. So this is a issue that we have to look upon, that like if it is a complete system, if it, let us consider the smart city. In smart city there are some other systems, small systems, within that there are some other small systems, right? Now we are working on this problem only, right? Let us consider this is the air traffic controller. Now this might be working in integration with some other system, or it might be providing output to some other systems. So if we are just thinking about this one and not about these other systems, then your system might be working fine in isolation, but if when it will be integrated with the other system, then it might create problem. So we will have to look upon this problem in this way. At least I'm not saying that we need to explore all these systems as well very clearly. At least we should know how my system will work with these systems. So then only our complete software intensive system will happen and we will be able to work upon the proper outcome. Another thing is that in this perspective, when you will think in isolation, you have one system. But when you try to integrate, when you try to think in this direction that yes, my system will be working with already existing system, so automatically there will be some open problems, some open research problem for this integration on these interfaces. So for that, you might need to adapt your system to make it integratable with the other system. And then again, if this happens, a new system will happen at your side automatically. This will happen, right? So this will again give you a novelty, factor of novelty in your research work. Right, just for an example, we can see like even in this case, I had just talked about the integration with some other software. Similarly, integration with the hardware is also important. Like if you, some of you are hardware people, you might find that it is not that hardware need not to be changed for the kind of softwares. With the kind of software, some changes in the hardware is also required. You can see that a lot of changes in the chips happened with the emergence of kind of software. Like when quantum softwares happened, a lot of research work is happening in the quantum hardwares. So both of the things are important. So if we are software people and we are like collaborating with the hardware people, then also a lot of research work will automatically happen. On both sides it will happen. Right? Just for an example, you can see I have taken it from one of our research paper in consumer electronics. You can see that if it is a small system where if any tourist is coming to any city and that tourist is trying to basically visit that city, like if I have reached to let us consider Bombay at 2 o'clock, so I have just 4 hours to visit that city and then I need to leave. There is my flight. So within that 4 hour, what are the places that I can visit with minimum traveling time and with minimum crowd or the road conditions are okay. So if that type of system is to be there, city tour planner service. So within that also, like we need to look upon many small systems are there. Like there might be one system which is trying to find out the smallest route that I can follow. In that sense, smallest can be where the crowd is less and where the raining is not there. Like in Bombay, like city, at some places there might be heavy raining, at other places it might not be raining. So we need to look upon that. Road crowd is another factor. So we might to look upon the different sensors. We might to look upon the sensors for the weather, current road condition, right? Then smallest route calculation. So input from many different sensors are required to take the decision. Or we can say the small systems might be there for each kind of sensor, and then overall decision need to be taken based on the amalgamation of the input from all other small systems. So this is very small problem. But if you are working on a very like smart city type of scenario, then so many systems will be integrated. So in those cases, we need to think upon all those systems, even if we are working on a small system. So from that perspective, the problems in AI and network communication need to looked upon as a whole. Bigger problem, within that we are looking upon a smaller system. So if we are looking upon the system in that scenario, in that way, then solutions are more compatible, and you will have some good research work as well. Some novelty will also happen automatically. Like one such problem is like smart grid analytics. If we are looking upon smart grid analytics in isolation from the smart grid people, like electrical people, then the kind of research will be really different, may not be compatible with the existing infrastructure, right? So if you are working in collaboration with them, then you can get the basic architecture, you will get the basic compatibility issues automatically, and then automatically novelty will happen in your problem, right? So we will just have to look upon these problems in this way, and then automatically you will have so many good challenges to work upon. Like for network security also there will be problem during the communication. For security issues on the for the stored information might be there. In all the communication related issues in cloud, you will get the research problem that I already specified. Wherever there is data generation, you will have problems related to machine learning, AI, and data analytics, right? Big data, deep learning. Similarly, IoT and cloud and web services I have already specified. So all the challenges will happen, and so many research problems will be open to all, right? So that's all for today's discussion, and I hope all of you will be working upon in this style if it is suitable to you for many research problems that you will be finding during this course. Thank you. So if there is anything anyone want to contribute, anyone want to say, you can specify, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Dear
ma'am.
participants, if you have any query, you can ask.
Yes, any query from participant side?